Hey, I'm Jeff Reber with ERA Real Estate, and we, if you can't tell by the length of my hair and my absence from getting my hair cut, have been in quarantine now for a few weeks, or maybe like a month and a half. I can't remember, and I'm sure you probably couldn't, when you were in quarantine, remember either what day it was or what time it was. Things are getting crazy, but hopefully we're getting back to normal soon. And I wanted to respond to one of the questions that I get often in a normal real estate environment from sellers, from buyers, from family members in other states, from real estate agents in our office. And that question is, who pays for what closing costs in a real estate transaction? So a quick note before we get started on who pays for what cost, and that note is this. What we are talking about is customarily, or what is the custom around you in the area that you're selling real estate for who pays what cost. There is no law that a particular party has to pay a particular cost, but as things have evolved over the decades and the centuries in real estate in the United States, different localities have different customs for who pays a particular item. So what I'm telling you is not the law on who pays what, but what is customary for the area. Okay, so now that we have the overview out of the way, let's get to it. For a seller in Northeast Florida, what costs do you typically pay? And I'll run through these rather quickly. In the post on the website, JacksonvilleRealEstateVideos.com, you can see a more full description and even a range of value, or for some items, the actual cost. For example, our first item is deed stamps, and that is 0.007 times the sales price. And that's a state tax that goes into the state coffers. And so that is a set rate. There's no negotiating that, no changing that. And again, typically it's a seller's cost. The next thing would be an owner's title insurance policy. That also is a state regulated amount, and I'll put a calculator on our website because it's not as simple as the deed stamps calculation. It's a little different, but I'll put a calculator there, and it basically gives insurance to the new buyer so that if something pops up from historical ownership, that is taken care of by the title insurance company, and the buyer doesn't have to worry that your uncle's, granddad's, cousin's nephew says, hey, whenever that house was sold in years gone by, I didn't get my money. The next thing is a title search, and the title company will handle the transaction as a whole, including the search, organizing the title insurance policy, and then the next item, the settlement fee, which is what they charge for doing all of that work and then handling the money from the lender to the seller, from the seller to their lender, from the buyer to the seller, and back and forth and back and forth. The title company handles all of that and charges a fee for doing so. A survey would be what shows you, the new buyer, what you actually own. And typically in Northeast Florida, the seller will pay for that. They'd also pay for a satisfaction of mortgage if they have one to pay off their existing loan. And then there'd be a few things like seller paid closing costs on behalf of the buyer, a home warranty, maybe some courier fees or wire fees if the seller's out of town. These things are not going to be in every transaction, but when they are present and the buyer has asked for the seller to pay these items and the seller agrees, then that would be something that the seller pays for too. Last but not least, buyer closing costs. If you're purchasing a home, what do you typically pay for? I give this overview to buyers when they're asking this question, and that is typically a buyer pays for anything associated with getting financing in Northeast Florida. So if you're paying cash for a house, your closing costs are basically zero. You'd have one little recording fee that you would usually pay for that's next to nothing. So getting a loan though, you have multiple costs that you're going to be responsible for. And those include recording fees for recording the note and mortgage, includes what's called the intangible tax, which is a tax on getting a mortgage that goes to the state. Also includes note stamps, same thing, different amount. Includes a mortgagee title insurance policy, and that's a kind of like the owner's title insurance policy, except that it covers your lender. This also includes title insurance endorsements, which are little riders on your title insurance policy to protect from other issues, like if you live in a homeowners association or in a condominium complex. You'd also probably pay for a lender's flood certification. You're going to have some costs related to inspections, whether it's a general home inspection, a WDO inspection, a pool inspection. Those usually are paid outside of the settlement or the closing itself. You'd have some mortgage origination charges. So when you go to borrow money from a bank or a mortgage company, they have processes in place and people in place to make all of that happen. So they're going to charge you for originating that loan. You'd have an appraisal fee, which would be the cost that you pay to your lender to go hire an appraiser to substantiate the amount that you're paying for the property. You'd have a credit report run, so you'd pay for that. You'd have, let's see, I mentioned inspection fees. Maybe some of the miscellaneous things that come up sometimes, but not always, would be things like a home warranty. If you're getting an FHA loan or putting less than 20% down, you'll have what's essentially mortgage insurance. Like on a VA loan, they call it a funding fee. On an FHA loan, they call it mortgage insurance premium. And then on conventional loans, it's just mortgage insurance. But if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. You'd have maybe some wire fees for sending funds. You may have a municipal lien search done, which checks for specific liens that the county or city has placed on the house itself for things like not mowing your grass. So there's all these little things that could be paid. Things like an estoppel letter that's what you get from a homeowners association to show that there are no monies owed to that association. Sometimes that's a seller cost, sometimes it's a buyer cost. It's something that can be negotiated. So hopefully this gives you a well-rounded view on what takes place in a real estate transaction. And after seeing hundreds, if not thousands of contracts, this is kind of my best summary for who pays what. But I say this often, everything in real estate is negotiable. So you never know until you ask for the other party to pay a cost if they'll pay for it. If you've got questions about this, if you have an upcoming transaction that you're needing help with, I would absolutely love to help. Give me a call, 904-405-1995, or you can email me, jeff@era.com, and we'll catch up soon.